Good morning, viewers, and welcome to the last Tuesday of January 2025. I am Promising Joko Adibe, your anchor for today's morning show, of course, coming to you live from ACNNTV. I have with me three very powerful men who will be talking about a very, very important topic: the role of the church in Nigeria's politics. And then I really want to say that the role of the church in Nigerian politics truly is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon that has been shaping the country's governance and democracy for decades. Now, as a nation with over 200 ethnic groups and multiple ideologies, you would agree with me that Nigeria's political landscape is inherently diverse and dynamic, very, very dynamic. Now, the church, as a moral authority and a significant social institution, has played a crucial role in influencing Nigerians' politics. Okay, so from advocating for social justice and human rights to participating in the country's electoral processes. But with Nigerians' current politics marred by a high level of corruption, we just talked about illegal mining, that's just one out of it. A high level of corruption, inequality, and social unrest, the church's role in promoting positive change and good governance has become more critical than ever. Although some have argued that the church has tilted towards the politicians, the politicians now rule the church, others argue otherwise. So, what are your thoughts as an individual, as a viewer of this program? What are your thoughts? Please feel free to call us using the phone number showing on your screen, or you can share your thoughts with us via any of our social media platforms also showing on your screen. We really want to hear from you. So, I'm going to start this segment of conversation. Let me start with the venerable. He is a priest. So let me start with you, venerable. Do you think the church should be actively involved in governance and politics? Do you think the church should do that?
Yeah, yes, the church cannot be passive. It's a categorical yes.
Okay.
The church should be actively involved in politics and governance.
Okay.
Scripture told us that the government of the world shall be up his shoulder. The church is a representative of Jesus Christ. And if there must be light in the system, if there must be relief, if there must be reality, as we've been campaigning and advocating, the church has to play a significant role by deploying all the spiritual wisdom into the system.
Okay. But then agreed with you, the church should be active in politics and governance. So can you tell us how the church can balance her primary mission of spreading the gospel vis-a-vis her obligation to engage in politics? Because we're beginning to confuse these two.
Yes, like you have said, the primary mission of the church is spreading the gospel of salvation, the gospel of Jesus. And salvation is holistic. All that concerns man, all that concerns societal well-being, individual well-being, is encapsulated in the context of salvation. And the gospel of salvation is incomplete without raising human resources that will, without the discipline, human resources that will feature in governance. So in doing this, number one, the church has to be intentional in discipleship. It begins with intentional discipleship. I will say again that everybody in politics they belong to one religious group or the other. The ones that come from the church, how well have they played their role? We need education. We need spiritual education. We need moral education. Number two, I won't want to emphasize on that. We need to put in the moral value, the Christian value in those we are sending forth into the world. He called them 12 that they might be with him and that he might send them forth. The problem with the church, or the problem with us, is that we are having people representing the image of the church who are not themselves carrier of the mindset of Christ.
Agreed.
Number two, we need to be intentional in our advocacy. The church is passive. We need to advocate for good governance. And we need to do that with our head raised up. We need to do that with our voice loud and clear. The church needs to be heard. And in doing that, we have to do that through the instrumentality. It's not just to verbalize it. We need to practicalize it. We have to do that through the instrumentality of human resources also. If we have a system in place and we are intentional about our discipleship, we also need to send people into different sectors.
Okay, so I'm going to hold you on. I'm going to hold you on there a little bit, Venerable. We have our first caller for the day. Good morning and thank you for calling in. Can you go ahead and make your contribution, please?
Hello, good morning. My name is Sanchez. I'm calling from Abuja.
Okay.
I just want to contribute on what the program is here. First, the government that said they want to fight corruption. I just want to join my view with what other man said. Hello, are you hearing me?
We can hear you, please. Go ahead.
Yes, I don't think the government has the capacity to fight corruption because you can't fight yourself. The one that is saying they want to fight corruption and security, how involved are they in this security now? That is by the way. Now, my brother, the venerable, is saying that the church is involved in politics. There's a difference between being in politics and being a governor. I think the church can really be involved in governance, but politics is a different situation. The government shall be upon its children, not the politics shall be upon its children. So if you are looking for where the God of this world is the champion, it is in politics. Let Christians in government govern well. Let them handle their offices with the fear of God, not necessarily joining APC or PDC and the rest of them. Now, let the church itself run their churches very well so that people can look at us as the light of the world. You will agree with me, the venerable knows what I'm saying, that the politics in the church is even better than the politics outside. Let the church organize themselves very well and be the light of the world and the Bible follows. Then the world will look at us. A situation where we are simply collapsing into the world as the church is dangerous. We tolerate all manner of things.
Okay.
You know, the venerable knows the politics that goes on in the church. How do people get posted to a bigger party? Is it through the normal process? That is politics. And that is not what you want to do. That is why when the world look at us, they don't see the difference. They think like the same thing. So I think the people like this should be more involved in governance than in politics. You don't have to be a PDP member. You don't have to be an APC member to do well. Wherever office you occupy, bring Christian virtue, bring the fear of God there. Then Nigeria will move well. That is that. So let us stop putting these things together. Politics is different from governance from the Christian perspective. Let the people get it right from our own side. Okay. How do you tell me that you need a church that your members cannot attend? If the church is, if it's good, we are as expensive as the school established by church, who would have gone to school? That's answer that question. If it's good, federal government schools are as expensive as the schools established by churches, would anyone go to school? That is number one. So we are wicked to be right. Let us take our eyes away from politics, go to governance and get it right.
Okay.
And again, he talked about what Osomole has said right. Whether as governor before, whether he allowed local government to operate, that's not insular. The insular is that he has raised a point. The mining industry is governed by criminals, and these criminals are not by government. They are the criminals. That is let the government use the same force with which they are protecting the oil resources in the south and protect our mineral resources in the north. The mineral resources in the north is deliberately in the hands of criminals, and government is under that. So there's nothing wrong with what we say. Don't reflect on what happened in the days that no. Right now, you see the different place and you say the right. Let us follow the right thing that we say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frank. You really you really spoke well. Thank you. We also want to encourage other viewers to please keep the calls coming. We want to hear your contributions. Or if you can't call in, please send us your comments via our social media platforms. They're showing on your screen right now. Venerable, you were saying something before our caller called. You were talking about some people there in government not carrying the real mind of Christ. I just wanted to point you out to where you stopped. So please go ahead and finish up.
Well, I'd already talked about intentional.
Exactly.
The way the church can involve. When we, this is my opinion. We are entitled to our own opinion.
Of course.
The governance in our society, one of the pathway to it is politics. And when we ask the question, can the church play a role? Is the church having a role to play in politics? The church has significant role to play. I will not encourage partisan politics. I will not encourage the church to do an endorsement of an individual. But the church can emphasize on issues.
Okay.
The church can scrutinize, can assess interested candidates with, visible, let's say, workable solutions in their hand. Like I said, I will not encourage partisan politics. I will not encourage the church to endorse a singular candidate, because we have a church with different political interests, divergent view, and all of that. But my point is that we must begin with intentional discipleship.
Okay.
We must encourage active advocacy. We must also be intentional at providing solution, talking to political stakeholders. And in talking to political stakeholders, irrespective of their positions, irrespective of who they are, and our bishops, they are doing. They are doing that. If you attend synods, you see them addressing issues all over the dioceses in Church of Nigeria. You see year in and year out, they address this issue. Our concern is that those who are representative of the church, how well do they carry out this thing? And it boils back to us again. Have we also engaged in intentional discipleship? Have we also been able to people?
Let me hold you on there. Let me come to you, Mr. Paul Smith. Venerable talked about intentionality. He talked about the fact that some of these people that go into politics and governance, yes, they carry the Christian name, but then how sure we they carry the mind of Christ? Now that brings me to my next question. Do you think the church has failed in her role in governance and politics? Mr. Paul Smith, are you there?
Yes, I'm here with you loud and clear.
Okay.
So I think the church has failed in its role in governance and politics. The church should be the conscience of the nation. I do not agree that the church should be actively involved in politics, but the church should be the conscience of the nation. The church should be seen as the only truth that is in the country. But what we are seeing now is that the church is not living up to expectation. The church is not showing itself as the conscience of the nation. The church is not speaking truth to governance. What we are seeing is that we are seeing a divided church. The church is not united, which is a problem. We are seeing a divided church, and we are seeing a church that is involved in partisan politics. So this has clipped the wings of the church. They can no longer speak truth to government. They can no longer be that conscience that the nation needs in time of crisis, just as we have now. You see the church acting as if though some of our fathers in the faith are being bought by gains, by earthly gains. That should not be the role of the church. No, the church should be seen as an active conscience and truth, the voice of truth to the nation. And I will tell you, the Nigerian church has not been doing that. This takes me back to Germany during the Nazi era. Hitler wanted to take over the German church, but they stood their ground and continued to speak truth. Continue to speak truth to governance. Do we have such fathers of faith existing in this country that will show that yes, indeed, that the church is the conscience of this nation? So if you're asking me, the church has lived up to that expectation, my answer is a big no. The church has not. The church has failed all of us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Paul Smith. That's your opinion. The church, you said the church has failed all of us. The church should be the conscience. Well, let me now come to you, Barrister Patrice. Now, do you agree that the church has failed in her role in governance and politics?
Well, it's not for me to agree or disagree, but with respect to the topic, I think you cannot place something on nothing and expect it to stand. And the Bible also says that if the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? My opinion on these issues, from the little research I did and from the opinion I've had, found out that the church does not even understand her role. You know, with respect to the mandate God has given the church. God gave the mandate when he created man. He said, God created man in his own image. And the Bible says that he blessed man and said, have dominion, rule over the earth. And then Jesus Christ, when he came, as he was living, he said, go ye into the world and make disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe what I have taught you, and baptizing those who believe in the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And lo, I'm with you. So, and then when you now look at our society, you find out that the church, just like the Venerable said, that the church's mandate is to prepare people for heaven. That's not correct. That's a misunderstanding of the role. The church's responsibility is to prepare people to do what God has asked them to do. What did God ask them to do? If you ask me, if you assuming you appointed me to take over this place and manage it, and then somebody comes and said, he is representing you in a way that he will help me to manage what you ask me to do. What the person is supposed to do is to teach me on how to manage that thing, not to prepare me to come to where you are. You understand?
What an illustration.
Yes. God gave us the power. God gave us this earth. The Bible says the heavens and the heavens belongs to God, and the earth has he given the sons of men. The role of the church is to prepare people to govern the earth, to dominate the earth with the principles of God. Because anything you do for God, do you know, Jesus said in Matthew chapter 25, whatever you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. The best way to heaven is how you relate with your fellow human beings, not thinking that you are good. No. The role of the church is not to prepare anybody to go to heaven. It's to prepare us to manage. God has given us this estate called earth. And that is exactly what other Islam is doing. If you look at Nigeria, we say we practice a secular state. Islam, the mosques, the Islam, we have a secular constitution. But they have, in their various states where they are in majority, brought in their Sharia, Quranic-based law, which they call the law of God. But tell me, have any Christian control state brought in any form of law that is based on the Bible? No, we have not. So if you go to Qatar, if you go to Saudi Arabia, if you go to Dubai, you cannot even separate the state from the religious. All of them are entwined, and they are governed under the law of God as they know it, the Sharia or the Islamic law. But and when you come to Nigeria, they also govern their own states. So I think it was the Zamfara state governor that brought it at that time when Obasanjo was the president, and he started Sharia in Zamfara. And there were Hula Balu. Now almost all of them have joined. Each of the states, they have their Sharia laws. In fact, the Nigerian Constitution have even ratified it by giving them a Sharia court of appeal.
And in one of the newspapers we read this morning, they're actually trying to take it to the southwest.
Exactly. Sharia court of appeal is now embedded in our own positive constitution, in our own constitution, which interprets the law made by their, let me use the word, church or their Islam.
Their mosques.
Mosques, yes, their religious
their
books.
Religion, yeah.
Our own religious book is the Bible, their own religious book is the Quran. Sharia was gotten from Quran and all their hadiths, all the writings of their men, just like the writings of Paul and Timothy. That's what they call hadith. So you find out that these people understand the role God has given them more than we do. And we are here bandying lack of knowledge. We don't understand our role. We think our role is not to go to heaven or anything. Our role is to live by the principles of God on earth. Because when you live by the principles of God on earth, when Jesus comes, he will take you. You will be qualified for rapture. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah, somebody.
but you have to manage this estate. Because if you look at most of the parables Jesus gave, it was all about talent. The parable of the talent, the parable of this person, all of them has to do with the assignment given to you with your talent. Here, how did you manage things here? He will talk about a man who went on when he came back, he required his
5 talents.
I don't know where we got it wrong, thinking, and that's why if you look at Britain, even the church, if you look at Britain has a hybrid, whereby they have the constitution, they have the conventions, they also have the king, who is also the head of the Anglican church. So it's like a hybrid. And if you look at the Bible, I don't even know what Christians follow in this country. I get confused because under Christ is made to be a priest after the order of Melchizedek, which is a king and a priest. But in Christendom, we follow the order of the Jews, separating Samuel and David and Saul. You see, we really need a new theology that is based on. We need a new theology that is based on following Christ, because the king. I was discussing this issue with my wife yesterday when the questionnaire was sent to me. I said, our primate should contest to be the president or even be the governor, because the king must be the priest. That is Melchizedek. He is the king of Salem and also the high priest of God. And if you go to Psalm 110, he said, your priesthood is of the order of Melchizedek. What is the order of Melchizedek? A priest who is the king. So except we get it right, we keep on preparing people for heaven and keep on praying for criminals who are in government. I've been in politics. I always tell them, they called me yesterday to do one or two things. I told them I've retired from politics, but they still insist. If you know the kind of satanic occult that is happening in politics, you won't even pray for any of them in church. I can tell you firsthand, which I witnessed, not that I'm reading from a book. If you know the kind of occultic, some of them wanted to initiate me, I said no. If that is what it takes to go to National Assembly, I better go back to my farm and my law practice. So when we say all this, that you answer, your name is Daniel, or your name is Moses, or your name is Chukwemeka, or your name is Ebere, but you're a cultist, and then because of it you are a governor, doesn't mean it's immaterial. So Christians should go back to the drawing board and understand what our mission on earth is. The church should get involved, not necessarily in politics, but should get involved in training people on how to. Jesus said, go ye into the world, making disciples of all nations, teaching them to observe. Where is the world? The world is not, if you go there, it's not the cosmos. It is the aeon, the world of politics, the world of banking, the world of music, the world. That's where Jesus sent us to. When we go there, we teach people the principles he had taught us.
Actually, in all fairness to Venerable, he made mention of it. The church needs to do more on discipleship.
No problem. But it's a what he talked about was syncretism. He talked about this and talked about it. Should be a fine point that separates one from the other. One should stand entirely on its own, not a mixture. When you mix things, it means you don't really understand it. So the priesthood of Christ is not the priesthood of Levi, because Jesus Christ did not come from the tribe of Levi. Jesus came from the tribe of Judah, which is the kingship. But you go to church today, they celebrate. As a chorus, I'll be there, I'll be watching them. I say, this is what they are doing. They are taking us back to Levi. Meanwhile, when God was bringing Samuel, when God was talking to Samuel, when Samuel was under Eli, he told them, far be it that any person from this lineage will be a priest again. And he took Samuel, and Samuel was made a priest. Then later, when Christ came, Christ is a high priest. He's not even near Levi. He's of the tribe of Judah. So we should distinguish, all of us, both from Pope or whatever, should go back and do forget, theology may be 200 years, it may be steeped in error. Satan has entered the church in a way that has compromised the teachings of the church. I know that in first hand. So the church should get it right and should go back to the foundation, because if the foundation is destroyed, there's nothing the righteous can do. Praise the Lord.
Oh my goodness. Let me ask you one question not related to this. Have you considered going to theological college, being a priest? Have you considered that?
I'm actually at St. Francis Osasa. Okay. I'm doing a course in divinity.
Oh, beautiful.
But on my own, I've read, I've done my PhD and stuff. I've read so much and I've followed a lot of books. But most times when I listen to what they teach, not that they're teaching me anything, I'm just...
Okay, pause. Hold it there. Thank you. Well, viewers, are you getting a hang of this conversation? Feel free to call in. The number to call in is showing on your screen, and if you can't, please send us your comments via any of our social media platforms. I actually have a comment here. He said, "Good morning. The issue is true. That is the fact. Most of government officials are involved, but then how can they be stopped? Let all hands be on deck to fix the country. The three arms of government should be allowed to function independently." Okay, he was talking that this person is talking about the video we played of Adam Soshomole talking about some retired generals being involved in illegal mining. Okay, so I would have loved to ask Venerable to react to what our guests in the studio have just said, but then I have so much on my plate and I'm trying to look at our time frame. Venerable, you agree that the church should be involved in governance, even though almost even our caller said the church should be involved in governance, not politics. But now I want to ask exactly that leads to governance. Yeah, so I just want to ask, how do you think the church can provide moral guidance to politicians? Okay, so the deed is already done. We have these politicians there already, whether they are carrying the mind of Christ or not, whether they are Christians or Muslims. The deed is already done. They are there. So how do you think the church right now in this present age can provide moral guidance to our politicians and citizens alike? And how can they do that without being seen as taking sides or endorsing specific candidates. You talked about, I don't know if it was you or Mr. Paul Smith that talked about the church not getting involved in, I'm supporting this candidate or not. How can the church, provide this moral guidance without being biased?
Well, I want to begin by saying Pope John Paul II said the church must be a voice to the voiceless.
Okay, Venerable, sorry, you have to hold on. We have a second caller. Hold on, I'll get back to you. Good morning. Thank you for calling. Please feel free to share your thoughts.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello. Yes, I just want to correct one thing. One of the church is clear. As initiated by Jesus Christ, go into the world, bring teaching them what I teach you. If the church take that will be the only solution to all what you are saying. One of the things that people of the want to take over government and start on new politics. It's not so. And my brother just said that God has politics to government. No, you don't have to be in politics to be in government. You think the fear of God is the office. That is part of governance. You don't have to control it. Already has alluded that there is a lot of demonic activities going on in the politics. That's what the child of God is doing. Don't forget the prime minister, the president. Private well in so calling as the private officer. Let my general overseer do something well according to the law of God. Then they are trying to help God. They say that Jesus wants to help God. No, God has not been helped. If we preach the gospel and convert it, nobody will go to do what is bad. You don't have to do good until you become perfect. You cannot. That's not our road. Jesus was there from earth. And there was politics in the time of Jesus. The Bible says that when Jesus participated, that they were going to make him back. Why are we running into our leader? Who they tell me who is the politician that put any country more than you? It is not our calling. Our calling is to preach the gospel. When we preach the gospel, God will do the right thing. Let us stop trying to help God. We had the vice president Christian before. What did he do? Daniel was not in politics. And the people were teaching. So Joseph was not in politics. He was taking over the office of the ministry. And so on. How many have been taken? The guy was taking part in the president. And he did what was very recommended. And handed over power to the Jews. He paid for this election. And we stop deceiving us. Election didn't start today. It was in the time of Jesus. But Jesus is calling to take the war back to his father. Okay. And that is what we do. Every nation display righteousness wherever you find it. Okay. Should follow what we are supposed to do. Leave taking over government. People need to make my general overseer prime minister, president, and president. They will fail because not their calling.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, let us take our calling and just take it. Now let me draw your attention to what is going on now.
Okay.
Something is about to happen wrong. The government will rise up. Let's come to a committee that will handle this thing very well.
Okay.
The committee is already spending that understanding. And they are working. This is the kind of solution we should be giving. Look into that in now. Set up a committee that will handle this employment that will favor Nigeria. Not to allow an organization that is already failing to handle it and spread more. Our role.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Frank.
I ask you now, why did you just got away from becoming
I'll have to cut you short there. This is getting more interesting, getting more intense. And okay, so before I take reactions, let me allow Venerable quickly finish what he wanted to say. I asked him a question on the church providing moral guidance to politicians.
To be honest with you,
yes,
I actually know that this is going to be a very controversial issue. It has been a very controversial issue and it will remain a controversial issue. And the major challenge, the reason why we are not having a headway is because many who are part of the church, they still insist that the church should not play active role. And I kept wondering, who is the church? What is the church by our understanding? You have a representative from the church, and you are denying that the church should not be actively involved. The church is actually involved. It's only that we are involved in failed ways. In failed ways. The church has been involved in politics and governance because the people who represent us, they are tributaries, they are offsprings of the church. Let me say, as much as I maintain, and I will still maintain, that the church should be involved in politics and governance because one leads to the other, we have responsibility. And part of the responsibility that we have is, I need to, before I start mentioning our responsibility, I've also maintained that there is a need for us to maintain independence, for us to maintain neutrality. There is a need, a very serious need for us. And that's why I said we should not endorse individual and we should not be involved as an institution. We should not be involved in partisan politics. So just to say, like, for the next 8 years for so period, the church is for APC, even when they are failing, or they are for PDP, even when they are failing. We need to bring into the stage justice, courage. We need to partner with political stakeholders, government stakeholders. We need to air our own opinion very loud and clear. The church need to be involved in advocacy. I have said that before. We need also to play a role of setting an exemplary leadership through community development. If we are going to be saying something, let's be example of what we say.
Agreed.
And I also need to maintain here that it's just that the last time a lot of us were involved in this, we were not so much, we didn't quite take a critical analysis of what happened about the last political transition period that we had. If you watch very closely, whether you like it or not, Peter Obi was a movement. It was not a party. It was a movement that was beyond any church. Even some bishops could not even control their own pastors, even if they believe otherwise. I remember my own wife told me very clearly that if you are doing something different, I am for Peter Obi and no one else. I know some other political leaders whose wife told, and that's because the man came on stage, attended several interviews, and was able to convince citizens. The church should provide platform for people like that. Should provide platform for those who are going to participate in politics, in governance, to come up with their ideas. How we are crying for what is ongoing now is fix it campaign. We want the system to be fixed. We want solution. We want answers. We want results. Are there no people that are indicating interest? What other larger platform other than the church that we have to feature those people and let the world see them? We are a city that is set upon the hill that cannot be hidden. The church is one major stage that can feature resourceful mind, that can feature well-meaning hearts.
Well,
These are roles we can play. Let's not say the church cannot be involved. The church. Those who are in politics right now that are out of the church, they are part of the church. And whether we like it or not, they point accusing finger at the church that the church has failed.
you know,
And whether we like it or not.
let me bring this in. When Barrister Patrice was talking, he actually categorically said the church has missed it. We've left what the Lord has instructed us to do as a church, and then we're doing otherwise. And you talking right now brought back some memories. I remember during the last elections, you found the fake bishops and priests. People dressed shabbishly in in our robes as Christians, and I kept wondering if the church was truly doing the right thing. Would the church be abused in that manner? Because we didn't see imams being, we didn't see people dressing to imitate imams. We didn't see a caricature of the other religion, but Christianity has been made a caricature of. Does it truly mean that the church has failed? Because if you look at let me just add this, if you look at some skits that have been created right, left, and center, any small thing you hear Jesus, any small thing you hear Jesus, they keep making fun of Jesus Christ, but you don't dare see them say Muhammad for whatsoever reason. Does it truly mean that the church has failed? Because this whole thing, yes, is controversial, but I just want you to point it out in a yes or a no for me, please.
In theology and philosophy, we hardly give a yes or a no answer
Okay.
at certain issues, because it's not a question of a yes or a no. One thing we need to know is that, and we need to accept, like our barrister on the stage said, I align myself with most of his view, if not all. I align myself because the reason why the church can be mimicked, and we see people making caricature of the church wearing bishop's robe and all of that, is because we have not developed the structure. It's because we didn't stand by the gospel with the gospel, even to the point of shedding blood. We have always been fearful. Thomas Aquinas advocate for courage, advocate for justice, advocate for equity. He advocated for fairness. We must intentionally come on out and build formidable structure. And it's not going to take one day. The Muslim brothers, they have been doing this over the years.
Yes.
And it's difficult to play with the Bible. It's difficult to play with animal. It's difficult to mimic anything that represents their institution. We may not use the approach they use, but we have something in our hand also. We need to go back to the instrument. How was it that in the days of in the apostolic age, how was it that the church became afraid and they were doing things with reverential fear? And there was a system that was in place that everybody was devoted to the apostolic doctrines, to their teachings. And when they said this is the Jerusalem Council resolution, everybody adhered to it. How did we come to this point? Compromise, fear. We are always talking about compromise. We are fear also. The church has been plugged in the zone of fear, or plugged into fear, because we don't want to be misunderstood. We don't want to be misrepresented. We don't want people to perceive us otherwise.
Okay.
We need to come out clearly and define our standing position.
On this show, we've actually extended beyond our time, and then we have to go shortly. But then, viewers, I want to encourage you to keep your calls coming, keep your comments coming, and if you can do that today, we'll still definitely have a part 2 of this. But before we go, let me come to you, Barrister Patrice. When you were talking earlier, you talked about Sharia law right now being embedded somehow, whether cunningly or with their full chest into our constitution. Now, we have Christians when this was, being put in. We have Christians who still, agree to whatever the funding and all of that. So, in your own thoughts, in your own wisdom, how do you think Christian organizations such as can come together and approach politics in Nigeria? How can we do that? How can our voices as Christians be heard in Nigeria?
Yes, thank you very much. The problem started from the fact that we believe that Christ did not come to seek political position. He couldn't have, because at that time there was no, the Israelites were under the Roman rule, so he couldn't have. That is number one. Number two, that wasn't even his mandate. But what do you call politics? Is the problem we're having is because democracy is confusing us. We are confused because of democracy. Democracy just is a system of governance. Democracy is not everything. You understand that name? You know, if you go to, like I was trying to draw a parallel, if you go to some Arab countries, you know, they have, some of them have kingship, they even have democracy also, or some of them are also merged in what they call monarchical democracy. But if you look at the Bible, God doesn't even like democracy. When he asked Israel, when Israel came to choose their own king, God was always ruling them, and Israel wanted their own king, and they chose Saul. God didn't like it. He told Samuel that, so the Israel have rejected me. You know, and Saul failed. I wouldn't stay here and say that God made Saul to fail, but Saul failed, and God himself used his hand to pick David, and he said, this person is the man after my heart.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, God is not even a fan of democracy. God will even want the people, would even want himself to choose people for rulers for them. So let us not mix it up with democracy, because democracy is not even the best kind of system of government. If you go to places like Dubai, where they don't even have democracy, they are better off than us.
True.
So why do we get so fixated with democracy? And besides, if not for, like in America, if not for Donald Trump that just came, see the way their democracy had turned up all manner of ungodliness. You go to the army, you're no longer talking about invention, you're no longer talking of building military hardware. What they are talking about transgender. What they are talking about is a man deciding to be a woman, and so that he can now go to female toilets. You know what they are talking
Confusion
about?
everywhere.
You know,
Misplaced priority.
this is your democracy. So don't get so fixated about that in democracy. What we're talking about is public governance, society. How do you manage society? You will prefer your pastor to be a bank manager. Some pastors in Redeem, most of our churches are bank managers. They are bankers. Some of them are lecturers. At least I know some of our Anglican priests, venerable former, what's his name again? Was the former VC of Nnamdi Azikiwe. Some of our, but you wouldn't want your pastor to be a president. You wouldn't want. Why? Is it not a system of government? Go to Benue State today. This is the second Reverend Father that is becoming governor, after the former Reverend Father that became governor. This particular governor now on the seat is a governor. So why can't our priests, be interested in politics? He had to be. Somebody said they shouldn't be in politics, but the governor, the Benue State governor, had to be a member of APC, bought the form, campaigned, and won. Hello. So, what I'm going back to your question. See, the Muslim Ummah, the Muslim community, they got this thing right by trying to, whether they are practicing it well or not is a different ball game, but they believe in the rule of Allah, which is their own way of saying God, enshrined in their Sharia, in their Islamic law, and they brought it into the public space and found a way to make it part of our legal system. So can't we? And they are using it to, although just like in our own culture also, the fake politicians there have taken over that area. That's why you have, even though they are ruled by Sharia, you have a lot of people, out of school children. You have a lot of them using all these kind of drugs. They are not even implementing social. They are not even building their society well in a way that you say that there is peace. Just not like if you go to Dubai, everybody is being taken care of. There is social. There is the government.
There's justice. There's equity.
Yes, the government takes care of the people. There's no poor person in Dubai, because they got free education, free free health services. You can, if you I've been to Dubai, so I can tell you.
But how can
So yes,
implement this?
I'm coming to your question. I just want to tell you, I want to draw a parallel where they are doing it in Nigeria, even though they are also trying to practice what is obtainable in Qatar, in Dubai, in some of the northern states. Because of the type of people in our society who have also taken hostage those areas, they are not also practicing it in a way that it will amount to good social welfare for the people.
True.
So when you come to our own side now, if you look at Can is, when you say politicized, somebody said politics in the church is even worse than the politics in the world. It's the people. Who are the people inside that Can? If they make it, would they also make, if they make it the way we are envisaging here, would they also follow the pattern the Muslim in the some of the northern states are doing? So that's the problem. The problem is not to try to make it to be like, the thing is, who are the players, the participants, the people that will transform this? What kind of, is Christianity inside them? Is Christ inside them?
That's the same thing Venerable asked. Well, thank you very much. I'll take that as your last comment. But before I take that of Venerable, there's a comment here. One major concern is the low level of Christian involvement in Nigerian politics. Research has shown that Christians have not adequately participated in the country's political process, leading to a lack of democratic governance. Additionally, the church's failure to address moral questions such as corruption and godfatherism has contributed to its ineffectiveness in politics. The church's silence on these issues have allowed them to persist, undermining the country's democratic institutions. Obvious challenges facing the church also is lack of unity. The church's inability to speak with one voice on political issues has weakened its influence. Corruption. The church's failure to address corruption within its own ranks have undermined its moral authority. 3. Lack of political will. The church's reluctance to engage in politics has allowed secular forces to dominate the political landscape. To overcome these challenges, the church must re-examine its role in politics and seek to promote democratic values, accountability, and transparency. By doing so, the church can help to build a more just and equitable society in Nigeria. This is an anonymous comment. Wow, very robust, very robust. Thank you very much for this comment. So, quickly, let me take your last words, Venerable, before we go. We've actually extended by about 30 minutes more, so we need to go right now. Let me get your last word with regards to what we're talking about.
Well, viewers, my last word for you all, for the church, is that as a church, we must go about our spiritual responsibility in spreading the gospel of salvation. And also, we must do that not neglecting an aspect of the society. Politics and governance is a major part of the society and a major determinant of the well-being of individuals in the society. And so we must intentionally advocate for justice, advocate for peace, advocate for fairness, equity. We must preach human rights, the need for those who are functionaries of politics and governance, the need for them to consider, to have a sense of humanity in them.
Yeah.
And in doing that, we must intentionally raise people as a church who will represent our image, who will represent the image of Christ.
Okay.
And we must provide a platform, a very strong platform for them to showcase their intrinsic value, to showcase all that they have learned over the years and what they are capable of doing. Please, let me just tell you something I did on campus as a JCCF vice president. Back then in the university, cultists were a day to the SUG election will always drive everybody. They will shoot gun, people will run, and nobody will want to come out. So I called a meeting. I told my JCCF president, okay, as a prayer secretary, first of all, I told the JCCF president, I said, how many? I am controlling over 600 persons in Anglican Student Fellowship as at the time. And you control over 200 persons. We have CFI there over 1,000 persons, Redeem over 1,000. We have some fellowship 400. These people, they listen to us. Why don't we provide a platform? Some of them, they are contesting for SUG positions in Student Representative Council and different positions from our fellowship. Why don't we provide a platform for them to be interviewed and for us to hear them? And then, although I realize that what we did on campus, the society is a larger one, but it's a miniature of what the society represents. It's called university, it's a miniature. And that was how we did. Believe me, do you know those we commended? We commended them to the Christian body. They heard them. They listened to them. All the campus fellowship pastors, they were there. They heard them speak. They heard their heart. They heard their voice. Beyond what they were speaking, we're listening to what some of them had done in their previous, administration and in their classes, in their own fellowship and all that, what they have done and what they are capable of doing. Do you know that 70% of those, I say 70, including the SUG president, and 70% of those who came stood standing before us, they became leaders. And from that moment, we didn't see social night of people having to litter everywhere with condom, because we now had the voice, the energy to call the SUG president and say, we put you there, we can also remove you. We place demand that over time, the social night used to be a night of initiation into courts. It used to be a night where people do sexual immorality, open field, you see condom littered everywhere. That became the beginning. There was nothing like that. They still had the social night, but they brought in things that were of moral value. Okay. They brought people that could inspire them. And so please, we must not shy away. We must not fear. We must not be afraid of being misrepresented and misconceived. The church is, for this that we are doing now, we are already on the path to it. We must continue to play the role and see to it that we put in the right people by discipling the people who will represent the image of Christ in the larger society, in politics and in government.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Venerable. We truly appreciate your contribution to this discussion. And like I said earlier, we're going to have a second segment on this. Will let us know when that will happen. Thank you very much. And please keep doing what the good things you've been doing over there in Ole, where our prayers are with you. And thank you very much, Mr. Paul Smith. Even though you had to, excuse yourself in the midst of the conversation, we understand. Thank you for your contributions, and thank you to Barrister Patrice here. We truly appreciate you, and I can't wait for when you be ordained. I can't wait for when you be ordained. Thank you very much for always honoring our invitation. We truly appreciate. And to our viewers, thank you for allowing us into your space this Tuesday morning. To our callers, thank you. To the ones sending comments, we appreciate your comments. You made this conversation, more lively. And to those behind the scene, thank you for making this this segment so seamless and interesting. And as we wrap this discussion on the role of the church in Nigerian politics and governance, it is clear, very clear, that the church has a vital role to play in shaping the country's future by advocating for social justice, promoting transparency, and holding leaders accountable. That is very key. The church, by doing that, can help create a more equitable and prosperous society. At the same time, the church must find a way to balance her spiritual mission while engaging constructively with political processes. My sincere prayer is that God help the church to get it right in Jesus' name. Amen. So until we come your way again tomorrow with another very interesting episode, never stop praying for the peace of Nigeria. Until then, bye for now.